My name's Alison, and I'm going to be taking you on a little trip for the next 50 minutes all about creativity. So it's good to have you here. Get settled. While you're getting comfortable, I'm going to ask you to have a look at a little survey. This is done by Poll Everywhere, so you'll need a device where you can text. It's not going to cost you anything. And the question I want to start you with today is, what is creativity in your mind? No right or wrong answer. I've given you a few limited choices here. But if you can text, the number is 37607. Boy, this feels like a telephone, does it not? Call now. And text Bullock 284. And you can go ahead and answer. This is a real-time survey, and we'll see what people's general opinions are of what creativity is. Feel free to turn to somebody beside you if you're sitting close and share what you think that is. And we'll get going with the actual slides after the survey in about 3 or 4 minutes. So you still have time when you need to run to the washroom, get comfortable, switch seats so you can see. There's also a URL there if you want to use it. Oh, excellent. Okay, here we go. We've got some responses coming in. That's the site right here, Bullock 284, and the number 37607. If you want to go ahead and put in what you feel the definition of creativity is. What is it to you? If the person beside you put in something different, demand to know why. Use your inquiry skills. This is great. Thank you for your responses. If you're just joining us, I'm going to ask you to participate in a quick survey just to answer a question on what you feel the definition of creativity is. And feel free to talk to people. I don't want this to be lecture style where you have to be quiet and I do all the talking. That's not what I want. Sorry, thank you. Oh, that's friendly and welcoming, isn't it? Kicked you out? Sorry. See if we can refresh that. Okay, I'm not sure why that is, but thank you to those who were able. My small sample size, my survey kicked people out. So, in general, it looks like we have an idea in this room that creativity is growing an idea and not necessarily making an actual thing. That's a little different from where I thought it might go, but that's interesting because I like where this is going. Here's an idea of where we're going in the next 50 minutes. What I'm going to talk about, some definitions and assumptions around what creativity is or can be, the conception of ideas and where they actually come from. We'll talk about what if. An alternative definition to the word creativity. That's where I'm going to spend a bit of time. Some roadblocks to it. 7 strategies to help introduce it. And a conclusion. I want to acknowledge that you're going to feel a repetition of theme from what you heard with Matt Miller this morning, and that's not on purpose. I talked to Matt afterwards, and he said, you know, sometimes I got up and did a keynote, and the guy right before me used my video, and I just about fell apart. So there are some repetitions here and there, not by design. So when I think of creativity, the first thing that came to mind for me, it means something that elicits a reaction from me of, wow, I never thought of that. That's more than I can do. Somebody smarter than me is doing this. It's something that inspires a sense of awe. promptly followed by a sense of wild inadequacy next to the person who did this. It's oftentimes fancy Rube Goldberg machines like this one behind you, moving things just because you can. I love this part, the exploding ninja stars. Spoiler alert. Just because you can, right? Very cool. The famous mousetrap game from the 70s and 80s, that to me is creativity. And it's been around for a long, long time. Our beloved Gary Larson reminds us that creativity was even in the prehistoric era. I like that one. So I'm going to take you back to when I was in school. When I was in grade school and a student, I always identified myself as a creative person. I am right at home in art class, in music class, in dance. And honestly, the improv part was my favorite part. That's just part of who I am as a person. Being expressive with colors and sound and movement, I can do that. I get that. My brain works that way. Fast forward a few years, and I'm a teacher. I'm currently a teacher with Waterloo Region. I'm in my 18th year of teaching, and I spent 15 years in primary and junior French immersion classrooms from grades 1 to 5. And I really loved what I did, but all of a sudden I had a whole new perspective on the fact that creativity in this definition isn't the same for everyone. It's not everybody's comfort zone. It kind of made me think back to grade 7 algebra that I hated. And I have vivid memories of sitting at the dining room table, my father, my conservative little English father with his yellow foolscap and his very sharp pencil, and we methodically and strategically think about how one might solve for X. And the whole time I'm thinking, this stinks, I hate it. Of course, I also have a teacher mother, so there was no way I was not doing and learning algebra. I still don't entirely get it, and I'm okay with that. I am good at a lot of stuff, and math ain't one of them. So I'm not getting out of it because my teacher has to have something to mark. You have to give the teacher a product. And as a teacher myself, I'm thinking, man, I get it now. These kids who are shifting and uncomfortable, you know, the ones who get the paper on their desk and say, okay, commencez à dessiner, let's start drawing something. Une vache. And they're thinking, draw one line, look around, erase it, and then they turn it over and they're going to start again. And then they just start at the very end and go, Madame, can you draw it for me? That's not an art class, that's a problem. But I had to get a mark. I couldn't let the kids pass go in creativity monopoly. They had to hand something in because I needed a mark. So they had to slog through this exercise of feeling like creativity's not for them. They're not fully creative. And that still bothers me today. So what we're really doing is separating a certain group of people from others, those who are elevated as creative and those of us who aren't. So the people who can paint and sculpt, you probably recognize Leonard Cohen, people who can craft evocative, beautiful songs and poetry from a string of words that you would just sometimes maybe throw on a grocery list, he makes into phenomenal award-winning art because he's creative. People who, like Shakespeare, people who write film scripts. You know how long those things are? I have trouble with a 150-word essay, let alone something that a really creative person can do. So the creative people, the creative, capital C creative, are people who are defined by a body of work. My perception is if you're creative, you have something to show for yourself. They define what creative is, and the rest of us don't merit getting that label. These people are what Malcolm Gladwell would call the outliers. They're the people who've put in 10,000 hours of practice, and they're far beyond the norm for people in regular achievement. These are the people who spend their lives by choice, pursuing excellence in art and creation, a concrete manifestation of an idea. They are truly the creative ones. But it's not just something we see stereotypically in art. If you're creative, you have a gallery exposition, or you have a fashion week primary runway, or whatever it is. Creativity is alive in all kinds of spheres in our lives. Consider sports. Where did the bicycle kick come from? What's that all about? You're going to break your back in half and give yourself a concussion, and yet they do it. They want to do it because it's cool. And more than that, it serves a purpose. It was built because somehow they had to prevent a weak pass across the field getting away from themselves. If you can strike a ball out of midair, you can quickly redirect it over a goalkeeper's head and score. If you're facing the other way, you can quickly get it over an opponent's head and get it out of your end. How about the flip turn? You ever tried that? Anybody? Any swimmers? That's it. Do you know you can learn it on YouTube? I did. I'm so glad there aren't YouTube videos of me learning the flip turn, because it would have looked, oh boy. Yeah, high class. So why did they invent it? It's creative, it's innovative. It helps maintain speed and momentum when you're in a race, so you don't have to slow down in the pool. Is creativity defined by something complex? Something that takes years and years to create by only the highly educated? Is creativity now a status thing? I still think some people feel that way, because you look at an art gallery and think, oh, I could never do that. Pretty sure I couldn't do that. And yet if you think about it, maybe with a team and with some learning, you could get somewhere with it. Here's an interesting study. This is from the Adobe Corporation from 2013. And they surveyed 4,000 adults across 4 countries, 2,000 of which were educators, 2,000 were not. And they had some startling things to say about the lack of creativity in our classrooms and why it was a problem. And almost half in every country in common said there aren't enough teacher resources for creativity to happen. Many people said that it's the role of educators. There's something wrong with our role that's not allowing us to embed this in our practice. In the United States alone, 86% of the parents and teachers felt the system is too reliant on testing, and it needed to be overhauled to allow more creativity. 86% of the people surveyed. We know that creativity fizzles out as we get older. We start liberated, unadulterated, free spirit, doing what we want as kids because it's fun and it's great. And then after a while, we have friends who look at us and peer groups, and we think, oh, maybe I'm going to rein that in because I really need to be in the cool crowd still, and that's not so cool anymore, so I'm just going to quieten it down. And that's a bit of a tragedy, considering that it's such a valuable thing. This is Sir Ken Robinson. He is an internationally renowned consultant on arts and education. He is a teacher himself, among other things. That's great. And he defines creativity as a way of living that embraces originality and uniqueness. But he goes on to suggest that creativity is not necessarily making something, but it's growing something. And I'm really pleased to see that in our initial survey, in my select elite group who got to do the survey, that you felt that it was the cultivating of an idea. So that's a similar vein that you're feeling along with Sir Ken. My question is this: if you have an idea to grow, build, where does it come from? Who throws you that idea? Do you pluck it from the universe? Does it arrive in the mail? Do you get a text one day? Where do these come from? And I was really bothered by that, and I needed to know what it is that starts these creative things happening. Where are ideas born? How are these lights captured and developed? And frankly, the word is curiosity. And if we don't have curiosity, we don't have creativity. Think about that. Think about that in the context of teaching. How often do you incite and inspire curiosity? I work in several schools in my region, and one of them, in the library, has a very small sort of 10-inch cube of glass. And the library clerk leaves it there, and she invites kids once a week or once every couple of weeks to bring in a random object. And they put it in the curiosity box, and it just sits on the counter, and kids can come in and say, well, what is that? So it might be a giant tumbleweed from Australia and from the desert, or a bone from a dinosaur tuck shop, I don't know, like the tourist gift shops. But they have this curiosity, and then she just leaves it. There's no explanation. There's no analysis. But the kids are invited to come in and be curious. And oftentimes, it's that that leads to creativity. Where is this in our human DNA? Where does creativity come from? So I'm not just an artiste, I'm also a scientist. It's like the hair club for men, I can do all that stuff. Something in humans makes us curious. According to one study, and there's a little tiny link in the bottom, I will share the slide deck later. It is wordless, so I'm not sure how much value it will be if you want to have it, but I will make it available. The study says that the primate brain is as equally stimulated by the need for information as it is by the need for food and sex. That primates are informivores. We thrive on it. Matt Miller was mentioning earlier, we crave it. We have to have information. We need to know how things work. We're naturally hardwired to be curious. We collect information from all around us using our senses. We pull things apart just because we can. We do things like making a replica of giant sailing ships tucked inside a glass bottle. I still don't know how they do that. If anybody knows, please send me a message on Twitter. We make humans fly. We put them in space. Why? Because somebody said, I'm curious. What would happen if we tried this? We demonstrate curiosity at all levels of life. Curiosity, by definition, is a desire to know. Another dictionary said, an eager wish to know or learn something. We ask ourselves hypothetical questions. And the most important of those questions is this one. If we didn't ask that of ourselves or of a situation or of a thing or a reaction, nothing creative would ever happen. It's a what if. And I'm going to show you some pictures. I like this one. Of some what ifs that have resulted in some fairly monumental products and creations and ideas. They all came from somewhere. We take for granted that these things exist. And yet, everything around you is a what if. Where did it come from? What if we can prevent this? Somebody decided that watching our loved ones and humans or animals die from diseases that can be cured or eradicated wasn't necessary. What if we can prevent diseases? What if we can reverse this? This is a picture of an underwater art gallery that is deliberately designed to sit and culture and grow new corals as rehabilitation in areas where the coral reefs have been demolished by pollution and environmental factors. The sculptor is Jason DeCaires Taylor, and his research and other bodies' research have shown that his installations are working. What if we can stop this? This is a rhinoceros lift. Sounds crazy? These are rhinos being lifted out of a high poaching zone in South Africa and relocated to areas where they have a likelier chance of survival. And it worked. What if we can intervene? This is only one example where humans have stepped in for the benefit of other things. This is a wildlife rehab center where they capture and help rescue injured, oil slick covered animals, rehabilitate them and preserve species and slow these things down. What if I could take your mind off things? This picture says a lot. If you look at the situation, and that child is probably not really feeling like it's a nice day to read about colors, but what if I give it a try? Even for a few minutes, I might give you a little bit of relief from the situation you're feeling right now. What if I can create a memorable moment? Interacting with somebody, taking a risk to try something different. This is Dr. Patch Adams, who has been renowned for bringing humor and clowning into hospital wards to bring happiness in a lot of situations. And I love the blue hair. I think that's fantastic. What if I can make a statement? The Red Hat Society, if you're not familiar, is a society of women who have joined together, who spend their time deliberately refusing to get old, celebrating youthfulness and passion, and they gather together and they honor and support each other. And they celebrate other people's passions as a group? What if I can create a feeling? What if you're the one who simply walks over and says, "Do you want me to hold that camera for you so you can be in the picture too?" What have you done for that one person? What have you done to help capture this fantastic moment that you can share? All comes from a what if. What if I can create a memory? I think a lot of us in this room might relate to a picture like this, where you think, "I love this storybook. I won't even go to get the library copy because I own it, and I've written in it, and I've colored in it, and my name's in it. If you take it off my desk, you're dead at recess. But when I read it, I put on the costumes, and I do the voices because I love it, but the kids love it too, and it's the one they remember." I had a student 9 years after I read a novel come back into my class. She came by invitation because we were going to finally Skype with the author in Victoria. We were going to talk to Kit Pearson about one of her novels. And I asked her, I said, "Remember that book I read?" She said, "Oh yeah, you mean the best book of all time?" I said, "Yeah, because that's what I used to call it, and I still do." And she remembered it 9 years later and came back because it was so memorable to her. So creativity to me, it's not about forcing and contrived situations and putting unorthodox things together that probably shouldn't fit, or you're trying to make something that's just not going to work. There is a psychologist from the University of British Columbia, Leanna Gabora, and she gives suggestions about ways to infuse creativity in appropriate ways. So it's not the theory of relativity by Ukrainian dance, but things that students can actually do, such as depicting food chains on a mural. That makes more sense. Acting out plays about historical events and role-playing. So there are ways to do this appropriately. She does point out that sometimes we have to think about transcending the boundaries of our disciplines. This is more of an issue in Rotary in high school, where you teach the subject and nothing else. So we have to sometimes get beyond that and start infusing some of these things together to be creative. I'm going to show you those quick slides again because I want you to look this time to see if there's something you feel they all have in common. I picked those on purpose because there was an underlying thread for me for all of those images. And I'm just going to I'll flick through them quickly, and I'm going to pause, and I'm going to ask you to turn and talk, if you're near somebody, what you think these have in common. Am I going too fast? Okay, so take a moment, turn and talk, think about it on your own, maybe send it in a text to someone, write it in your Google Keep. What do all those things have in common? 10 seconds. Would anyone like to share? There's no right or wrong here. You're probably thinking, I did not come to be put on the spot and embarrassed in this big theater. I'm not talking, and that's okay. But anybody want to share what you think what do those pictures have in common to you? Yes. Okay, helping and connecting, thank you. Other ideas? Yes. Oh. Do they all have glue in them? Okay, that's a bonus point. I did not catch that when I put those together. Anything else? Yes. Okay. Ah. Okay. Excellent. And I love that these are eliciting so many different responses because we can interpret what they are in so many different ways. Here's where my alternative definition comes in. And it's what happens, it's the commonality that I found in all of these slides. And I want you to consider this. Imagine that we're going to take a dictionary, we're going to rip it open to the word creativity, we're going to take a pencil, and we're going to write a number 3 under definitions 1 and 2. We're going to, in 2-point font, we're going to mash one more in there. And I would like you to consider this definition for the word creativity. To me, that's all it is. You're taking a risk to bring someone or something joy. And you're thinking, what? That's not like painting or pottery or anything like that. But if you think about those previous slides, all of those intended solutions and operations were a little bit of a what if. This might fail. This might make you sad and scream. But it might work. And it might bring you joy. Next question, what is joy? And for the sake of this talk, I wanted to use a word that was as encompassing as possible for what that could mean. What does it mean to you? 3 seconds. Turn to that same person. And what's your synonym for the word joy? I'm going to give you a whole bank of words. I'm going to see if yours might be up there. Would anyone like to share? You've done an excellent job at sharing and participating. Thank you. Shout it out. Or not. Suspense is killing me. There we go. So in a couple minutes at home, I came up with some words that could mean joy to you, to me, to your neighbor, and some of them that you would never ascribe to the word joy because that's not what it is for you. The key here is that joy to you is your definition and yours alone. You might just take absolute joy and glee in being told, I'll take the kids out to Boston Pizza tonight. Why don't you sit at home and read for 2 hours? Best feeling ever to some. Others, it might be, I'm going to scream and hit a boxing bag and call that horrible day every name in the book. And then I'm going to have a glass of wine and I'm going to feel really good. Catharsis. Any of these words are valid. So I want you to keep this in mind for the next few minutes, that we're going to talk about this potentially alternative definition to creativity and how we can bring this into classrooms. And here's the part I like about it. We all have this. There is no elevated status group of creative types that are better than the rest of us because they can draw better or whatever it is. If we're all only talking about taking a risk to bring people joy, we can all do it. We've all got this in us. Everyone has the ability to take a risk with the intent of lifting people. Your intent is key. We've all been the recipient of somebody else's well-intended risk-taking. I know that for a fact. Think back to one of those moments. I'm going to ask you to call up in your memory something that made you feel absolute joy, happiness, relaxation, lack of stress, elation, hilarity. Think about that moment. And take a moment. We're going to take a few more minutes this time because I want you to talk that out. I want you to relive it by talking it. And just share with somebody next to you what that moment was. Go ahead. I'm hearing laughing and I'm seeing smiling, just scanning. I like that. Thank you for being willing to participate and share with people you may not know at all and just turning to a friend. Would anyone like to share? And it's okay if you don't. This is a bit more personal this time. Yes, sir, in the blue shirt. Wonderful. Anyone else? And it's your joy. It's not right or wrong. Yes, sir. Okay, exciting. Pretty exciting. Great, thank you. Yes? Or how about being that student and finally getting it? The algebra works. X is by itself and all the other crap's on the other side of the equal sign. Yeah. Anyone else? These are great. Excellent, thank you. So we know we can do it. We've received it. You know what that feeling is like, and it's amazing. It's a wonderful feeling to be lifted by somebody else because they've been a little creative and taken a risk to do that for you. We can all do it. So why don't we? What stops us as humans? I'm going to go back to my psychology professor friend from UBC. She's not my friend, she seemed nice in her picture online yesterday. So she says that creativity is sometimes associated to negative things. I had to reread that because I love creativity. I thought, I don't think so. Where are you going with this? But she has, according to her research, found that creative people are sometimes associated with rule breaking, law bending, social unrest, aggression, dishonesty. Creative people often direct their nurturing energies towards ideas rather than people and seem aloof or standoffish and unfriendly. Our culture tells us that disciplinary boundaries are real. And thinking of like, I only teach history, I only teach math, we get trapped in those. And some of those negatives that keep us from doing it. But there's more. And I think this is the overarching one. And Matt talked about it a bit this morning. It's the fear of judgment. We are terrified about what other people think of us and what we do. I used to work with a lady who, at 26, had beaten cancer, become a teacher. She was newly engaged, and she pulled me into her portable one morning, and she was really upset and nervous. And she said, I really like this wedding ring, and I think I want to get this one, but there are too many diamonds on it. What do you think? Too many diamonds? Is that a thing? So she had 2 pictures, and I looked at her and said, what do you mean? If you like that one, get that one. Yeah, but what are people going to think? She'd gotten to the point where what I put on my personal body to express myself every day was going to be scary because of what other people think. And I finally said to her, you know what? One day will come, if you keep thinking this way, there will come a day when you're too scared to get out of bed. Nobody was put on this planet to hide in the dark in a bed, ever. It really terrified me that she had gotten that far with her fear of judgment. As teachers, we have to be careful how we hand out judgment. Kids want to take a risk and share things with us. We have to be careful to not be the ones to shut that down with judgment. And it's so quick to do because we're evaluating. I need a mark on that. No, I don't. He made me a card for my birthday. Think about that. Once upon a time, my brother-in-law, who's now 48, was in a kindergarten art class. My mother-in-law tells this story with great delight. He and my husband both define themselves as 100% art impaired. My husband won't even sketch a rectangle or doodle when he's talking. It's just strict underlines. He's all business. So my brother-in-law was assigned to make a pottery frog for Mom for Mother's Day, and we're going to paint them and take them home, and it'll be nice. Well, being the weasel that he is, he sidled over to the table where they were all drawing. He found the nicest one. He picked it up and thumbed out the initials of the kid who made it, and he scratched his own in. And then when they dried, he took that one home. The best part is his mother took one look and said, there's no way in hell that's yours. She smelled the rat, and she busted him, and he confessed that he didn't. So it didn't look like any of these when he was done. But then I thought, at age 5 or 6, why did he do that? And it was the fear of not bringing home something good enough for his mom. It's mom. Mom loves the dirt you bring in on your shoe. But it was the fear that stopped him. Interestingly, that man is now a police officer. The irony is not lost on me. Being different and taking a risk is hard. It's hard to stick out. And a lot of us are uncomfortable with that idea. We don't want to be the different one. It's not your fault. This is like a self-help group now. It's okay. It's not your fault. It's evolutionary. And again, Mr. Miller touched on this morning, but I'm going to dig a little deeper. Anybody familiar with Seth Godin, the author, or Godin, I'm not sure how to say it right. He's an author of the books The Dip, Lynchpin, Purple Cow. Excellent books, very interesting reading material. In his book, The Lynchpin, he talks about the structures in the brain, the human brain, and there are two entities that battle it out regularly, one being the demon and the other being the resistance. The resistance he also dubs the lizard brain. We'll get into that in a second. The demon is a Greek word labeling an entity in your head that, if it goes unchecked, unleashes wonderful creativity and productivity all the time. The resistance works really hard to insulate the rest of the brain from the demon, because evolutionarily, to stick out means you die. The pterodactyl swoops down on the lizard that doesn't follow everybody else in the crowd and eats that one. So it's not your fault. You're not selfish. This is evolutionary. There he is right there. It's critical to go along with the masses and the tribe if you want to survive. That's one reason. Then there's judgment. Our society doesn't promote and welcome the different, the people who stick out and go against the grain. Interestingly, in the survey, only a couple people thought being creative meant going against the grain to be different. Different intent. If you're doing it to be different and be noticed, I wouldn't call that creative. In our classrooms, this is a fairly common sight. The older you get, the pressures. Now, this time of year, the applications for post-secondary are coming out. All kinds of things stress people. We have the ability to start reducing this in creative ways. We don't want to have this happen. We see colleagues like this too. What can we do to minimize this feeling and maybe spread a little bit of joy? So I'm going to give you 7 tips on how you can implement my version of creativity today in your school. Practical things, and you probably do a lot of these already, but you don't realize the amazing effect they have to bring somebody joy. First one, think about balance. Model and teach time management. Your risk might be cutting off 10 minutes of silent reading time. So you know what? We're going to learn how to use Google Keep today. How many grade 8s bring their phones to school? Grade 10s? Got their device? Okay, I'm going to teach you how to dictate with your voice into your phone. Oh, look, it's right there on my calendar. Kids might want to write an agenda. Take the time to model it. On top of balance and time organization, teach them that it's okay to say no. Saying no is okay. And I'm going to give you a little strategy that I like to call the fecal sandwich. So somebody's asked if I want to take part in martial arts club. No, I do not. But my answer is this. That club sounds really great. I think the kids are really going to love it. I'm afraid my schedule is kind of full, so I can't fit it in. But let me know how it goes. So the no is squeezed in the middle of the fecal sandwich, and you haven't really hurt anybody. It's okay to say no. Put yourself first sometimes. Number 2, connect with people. Model the value of personal face-to-face connections. Put your phone down and see the people. Make eye contact with the other pulsing human entities that come into your building each day. Interact with them. Show them you're listening, you're engaged, you're seeing them. In this weather now, we can actually stand outside, say hi to their parents. Take your risk. Maybe you didn't quite get that photocopying for second block done, but you said hi to a parent who was so grateful to talk to you yesterday, and that makes all the difference. Be more people than teacher. Share your passion. Be you. Matt talked about being vulnerable, and sometimes it's a bit of a risk to show that. But look at the joy it brings. I love this lady here smiling away. It's not just the kids who are happy, fellow staff members. This staff is having a favorite fictional character day, so they're all dressed up and walking around with the book from which they have brought their character. And if everyone does it, it's not so scary. The lizards are uniting. It's okay. We can all just wear theme days and bring a little bit of joy. Make things personal. If you have time in your stacks and stacks of marking, I'm thinking of my English teacher friends who have to respond to prose and opinions on things, subjective work. Make comments like, I'm so impressed with the progress you've made since you came to see me in office hours. I'm really impressed that you're able to do what you do considering you were so sick 2 weeks ago. That's not an academic thing, that's a people thing. If you make personal comments that are appropriate and uplifting, kids know that you care about them as people, and that lifting sense of belonging is a great way to be creative and extend that joy to those people. Relax your time deadlines if you can. I think this is getting easier and easier now in the day and age of homework really doesn't have a whole lot of value. You can't mark it when it comes home, it comes back anyway. So life happens. People get swept away on holidays last minute. Kids get sick. People go on trips. It happens. The essay is not going to come in right away, but why make the kids stress about being handed in at 3 o'clock on Tuesday? If that's what you can do and you've measured that goal, all you've shown me is that you know how to follow directions. So let it go. Lose a little bit of deadlines. Involve your kids in community service. I know a lot of schools do this. They have food drives, they have collections for shelters, they do wonderful empathy activities. And turn it around as the teacher and show the students what it feels like to be the creators of the joy. They're the ones who are making other people's lives better, and in turn, they will feel good. If you're concerned about this cutting into your program, I know we have lots to do, and springtime things and Easter, they kind of creep around EQAO, and you're thinking, there's no way in my class I can add this on top of everything else I have to do. Consider integrating this topic into a blogging activity. Write about the experience you just had. Create some math problem-solving questions, 3-part questions, that have to do with the mass of the particular box. Or if I put all the paper towel rolls end to end down the hall, how long would it be? Depending on the age of the kids you have. Just don't tell the custodian it was you. Leave kind notes. Send a text just because. Think about a colleague right now, a student you know, a staff member who's not a teacher. The titles don't matter. But think about somebody you know in your sphere of existence that could really use a kind word or a text, even an emoticon of a little face and a happy, it's a 1-button click, 2 when you hit send. Really easy, but just to show you're thinking about somebody. Just because. We don't do the just because is enough, and it's really easy to do. I think Leonard Cohen got it right. We saw him earlier. This is one of his younger days. He looks a bit like Dustin Hoffman there. Anyway. He said the best kind of creativity comes from a sense of purpose and intent, and it's done with good intentions and not just for cash and reward that way. And I agree. If we're doing things with that intent of lifting people and making them feel better, being a little bit risk-taking creative to bring joy, that is the best kind of creative we can be. Human existence is not happy sunshine all the time. We have days like this. Oftentimes we're living and working among other people, dealing with stress and crises that we don't know about. We never will. Stop and think that extra second when you want to roll your eyes beside the person eating breakfast in the auditorium and crackling every bag they own, and you can't hear, and it drives you crazy. I'm speaking about me. I'm the one going, I hate that noise, you're driving me crazy. But if I take that extra moment to say, maybe she got flustered at home today or got in an accident and got here late, and this is the best she can do for having breakfast. Let it go. If I'm so uptight, maybe I need to move to a different seat. But stop and consider. Some people are in this mode right now, and a little bit of creativity can help to turn some of that around. The United Nations commissions a study every year called the World Happiness Report. The first one came out in 2012. And they've been coming out annually, and they measure 6 different things across many, many countries. And I'll tell you what those 6 factors are. They include GDP per capita, healthy years of life expectancy, social support as measured by having someone to count on in times of trouble. I love that. Trust as measured by perceived absence of corruption in the government and business, perceived freedoms to make life decisions, and generosity as measured by recent donations. The statistics have shown that the countries with the greatest GDP are not the happiest ones. Just Monday, the Toronto Star had an issue out kind of countering that, saying, yeah, you really do need money to buy happiness. The The author is Neil Pasricha of the Book of Awesome. I don't know if I said that right. And his whole thing is, if you have $85,000, you can be really quite happy. If you have $385,000, you're no happier than if you had the other amount. That's the ceiling. And his suggestions were that if you're going to spend money to bring yourself happiness, you should be doing it on things like experiences or growing a skill, and not just on stuff. Spend it on time with family. Take people out to dinner and enjoy the connections, and not 8 people at the table all staring at their phones, wishing they had iPhone 10 but don't want to pay for it. So it's the human things that truly matter. Taking a risk can turn those dark, horrible days into something more like this for those people, even for yourself. It may not give way to the perfect day for you, but the effect you have on somebody is far greater than you realize, and it's far greater than you give yourself credit for. Here's the resistance talking you down, going, don't do that, that's a dumb idea, you're going to look like an idiot. No, you're not. The person receiving that act of lifting will appreciate it far more greatly than you could ever realize. So give yourself some credit. That feeling of joy is something we can grow, we can create. We can make feelings like this for our students. I'm not entirely sure what's happening here, but I can infer that this child has created something or is showing off an object he's very proud of to somebody on a Skype call or a Hangout. But I love all the adults in the background. Those could be parents, those could be fellow teachers, EAs, who knows? But it's that look of, isn't this great? And that feeling of pride from all those people backing him in the background. We can do this. We have the ability in our classrooms to do this for kids and staff members and other people every day. It's easy to focus on the world's problems, to fixate on negative stuff. And sometimes it truly feels like humanity's going to hell in the express lane. But I encourage you to start getting creative. Start to try and turn it around, and start with yourself. Do something today that makes you feel joy, and do it regardless of what other people think. So if I see anybody out here skipping and whistling straight out the door to roll on the lawn and enjoy the grass, I'm just going to give you the old smile and thumbs up, because I know what you're doing. Doesn't matter what the other people think. I get it. Try to bring back that feeling for yourself, and then harness that and pay it forward. See if you can find that one thing that's going to make that feeling spread further to somebody else. We all have it in us to create and to create positive change. And by doing this, we create a culture and a world full of positive change. A world where I know I want to spend a lot of time. I want to try to enjoy everything that we've got here. And with this definition of creativity and making these changes, or continuing the great things you already do, we can make a pretty spectacular place to be. Thanks for being here.